Okay.
Misa's not coming, so we're good to go.
Okay, let's go.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order for today, Monday, June 8th, for the Sonoma County Transportation and Climate Authority and Regional Climate Protection Authority. And can we please have a roll call?
Director Janice Cater-Thompson.
Here.
Director Chris Corsi.
Here.
Director Susan Harvey.
Here.
Director Gerard Giudice.
Here.
Director Nasa Hinton. Chair Ariel Kelly.
Here.
Director Todd Lands.
Here.
Director JB Leap.
Here.
Director Sandra Lowe. Director Jeff Okrepke. Director David Rabbit. Director Linda Hopkins. That's everybody, Chair.
Thank you. We have a quorum and we do not have anyone participating remotely today. We thought we might, so we do not need to do teleconference disclosures. And we'll start with public comment on items not on the regular agenda. We can start with folks in person, and public comment can be also submitted via email. I don't believe we had any sent today, and then we'll switch over to Zoom. So welcome.
Hello, members of the board. My name is Noor Rizvi. I am a member of the transit advocacy organization Transbay Coalition, which works throughout the entire Bay Area, but I am here in a personal capacity speaking as myself. And I rely on public transit to get around in the North Bay. And I, along with the 40 people who emailed the board back in April and the people who've submitted written comment for this meeting, would like to urge the Sonoma County Transit Authority to not just preserve Sonoma County Transit Bus Route 51 and its essential evening service, but to further expand the schedules, adding more evening and weekend morning service to match Golden Gate Transit's former Bus 101 service. While the Mascots plan implemented in April made significant improvements to Smart Service, Smart trains do not run as early or as late as Golden Gate Transit's former Route 101 to Santa Rosa. Recognizing this, Sonoma County Transit and MTC agreed to run one evening round trip on Bus Route 51. However, Route 51 still does not match Golden Gate Transit's former service, and worst of all, is set to end at the end of this month, stranding riders in Sonoma County who depend on transit to get to and from jobs and making transit an undesirable option for potential new riders. Therefore, I urge Sonoma County's transit leaders to prevent the ending of Bus Route 51. I urge you to preserve Route 51, and not just that, but add more trips during late evenings and weekend mornings to match Golden Gate Transit's former service to Santa Rosa. These additions need to happen now, not 2 years from now. Sonoma County Transit riders should not be stranded and left without options. Improvements to transit also attract more riders and help prevent the climate crisis. And I urge you to take action now. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else for in-person public comment? And I apologize, prior to the in-person speaker, I mentioned that people can also submit via email. We did receive 3 emailed letters that are posted on the website, also along the same line, same topic. If we have anyone on Zoom who would like to participate and give public comment on non-agenda items, please use the raise hand feature.
Chair, we do have 2 people online.
Okay.
Lori, when you're able to unmute yourself, go ahead and talk.
Hi, I like to continue what the last public speaker said. This Mascots program has totally messed up inter-city travel, especially to San Rafael in the evenings and on the weekends. And it's absolutely took a Golden Gate Transit, even that route, the last route, skips Cotati. And I mentioned about a month ago that Cotati and Rohnert Park especially got the short end of the stick on all this, but you're affecting people's lives, and this needs to be addressed, that not soon, not later, of people who have jobs in San Rafael and everything in the evening, and it needs to have enough service. And the other thing is the Cotati hub is it's every 2 to 3 hours now. The way it's split, it's into 44 and 48, and that's that's unacceptable for a major city downtown. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Alex, when you're able to unmute, go ahead and speak.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I'm Alex Upshaw, full legal name James Alexander Upshaw. I'm a resident of San Francisco, and I'm here to urge Sonoma County Transit to preserve and enhance essential evening service for Bus Route 51. I'm a non-driver myself, and I rely on transit to get around the Bay, and that includes Sonoma County when I do come up there. And as a transit rider, I know firsthand how important having late evening service is, even when I don't plan on quite needing it, since it means I won't be stranded if I stay somewhere a little later. For example, having late night service significantly increases my comfort hanging around for a late dinner if I go to shop, recreate, or meet people in downtown Petaluma or Santa Rosa, knowing that I won't get stranded or stuck with a very expensive Uber ride if I'm a little late getting back. And while I personally don't drive by choice, and I sometimes visit Sonoma County, I'm sure losing late night service would be an even worse blow to mobility and accessibility for anyone financially or physically unable to drive, living or working in Sonoma County, even if they weren't available to comment today, or even if they aren't aware this late night service is on the chopping block. Therefore, I urge the board to preserve Bus Route 51 evening service, and ideally to add more trips to late evenings and weekend mornings to match what we formerly had with Golden Gate Transit. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else on Zoom?
Those are all of the comments.
Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it back. Our next item is the consent calendar, and we have a number of items on the consent calendar. Is there anyone in the room who would like to give public comment on the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to Zoom. Is there anyone on Zoom who'd like to make a public comment on the consent calendar? Please use the raise hand feature. Seeing none, we're going to bring it back to the board. And do we have a motion to adopt or approve the consent calendar?
So moved. A second.
We have a motion by Susan Harvey and a second by Janice Cater Thompson. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Now we're on to our regular calendar items, item 5.1. I'd like to invite up Chris Barney. So this is the Comprehensive Transportation Plan, Sonoma Moves 2050. And today we're going to consider approving the final Comprehensive Transportation Plan. Welcome.
Great. Good afternoon, Chair Kelly and directors. So I guess we'll work on getting the slides up. But while we're doing that, I'll be giving a brief update on the final plan today. And just will remind you that we presented the draft to the board back in March. The draft was released in January of this year and was open through public comment through late March. We compiled the final draft in April and May, incorporating your recommendations and recommendations from our advisory committees and the public. And today I'll be providing a summary of the types of comments we received and the changes we made to the final plan, which is linked in the staff report today. So let's go ahead and move to the next slide. And I'll just be providing a quick update on our update schedule for the Comprehensive Transportation Plan, or CTP. We kicked the update off in 2024, worked on refreshing our public outreach and engagement, which included compiling outreach and looking at outreach from our past CTPs, looking at other major planning documents, past polls and surveys. We conducted an online survey, and we also were out in your communities talking to residents of Sonoma County about their transportation priorities. We also reviewed the plan's vision and goals and reported out on progress we've made since the last CTP. We updated the CTP performance assessment, which considers future forecasts and travel conditions. We refreshed the CTP project list, which is a financially unconstrained list of priority transportation projects submitted by local agencies. And finally, we compiled the draft and final plans. So just a brief refresher on the CTP vision and goals. The vision is really focused on connecting people with where they want to go while moving towards a zero emissions transportation network in our county, while at the same time considering safety, equity, and quality of life. The CTP goals will help us achieve that vision and are focused on ensuring that our transportation system is, number one, connected and reliable, Number 2, self and well-maintained. 3, community-oriented and place-based. And finally, 0 emissions. So looking at a summary of the comments we received over 50 written and verbal comments on the plan from both you as board of directors, our advisory committees, and the public. You can see an overview of the types of comments we received, and I'll walk through some specific topic areas in the following slides. So starting off with board of director comments. First, we heard your concerns about safety issues associated with electric mobility devices such as e-bikes, e-scooters, and e-motos. We heard your desire to coordinate on education, safety, aligning municipal codes, and collecting better data on crashes involving these devices. So based on this feedback, we included additional information on these devices in the plan and added recommendations to coordinate on data collection and policy development. Next, we heard your concerns with traffic calming and speed management and a desire for more information on these topics included in the plan. And one specific need that was pointed out was the need to coordinate speed limits between rural and incorporated areas. So our residents aren't going from different speeds when they cross a city boundary. So there are a lot of efforts underway, both at the local, regional, and state level, both on traffic calming and speed management. So we rolled a lot of that information into the body of the plan and included many links to outside resources that will help you and your staff implement more traffic calming and speed management in your jurisdictions. And then Highway 37 was of particular concern. So we heard requests for more information on who's using the corridor, where they're going from and going to. So there are a number of studies that analyze origins and destinations and travel in the corridor. We pulled a lot of this information into the body of the plan and provided links to these additional studies for more detailed information. All right, so moving on to major comments areas from the public and committees. So first, we heard broad support for the CTP vision and goals, but we received conflicting comments that, number one, we're not doing enough to reduce transportation greenhouse gas emissions, and that we're also focusing too much on greenhouse gas reduction at the expense of roadway quality. So I would say the CTP includes both greenhouse gas reduction and reducing projects and recommendations, and pavement maintenance and preservation projects and recommendations. So we're covering both of those. In response to these concerns, we included additional information and references on the plan, pointing out supportive planning efforts, actions, and programs underway across the county, and added recommendations to consider these in future planning cycles. We also heard recommendations that folks would like to see a more concise, action-oriented plan with more quantitative metrics. So the plan is quite long. It includes a lot of reference material that we as SCTCA staff and also local staff use pretty frequently, but it's a lot to get through. So we've heard that, and we're going to work on making a shorter plan in the future and putting some of that reference material either into the appendices or other supporting planning documents. So the public and our committees also are very interested in safety, traffic calming, and speed limit reduction, and in particular policies for electric mobility devices. So as I mentioned before, we added additional information into the plan covering those specifically, including coordinating on policy and data collection. Transit and active transportation were also very popular with the public and our committees. And we heard a lot of interest in transit reliability, increasing frequencies, transit integration, and providing better connections both with transit and active transportation modes. So transit and active transportation are both major focus areas in the plan. Many projects and recommendations in there are focused on those modes of travel specifically. But we did include updated information on projects like mascots, our transit integration work, first last mile improvements, and active transportation improvements as laid out in the comprehensive transportation plan, and also active transportation plans to address those concerns. We also heard concerns about congestion in major travel corridors such as Highway 37 and Highway 12. So I would say the CTP includes improvement projects in both of these corridors and other congested areas across the county, but also recommends policies and programs that could reduce travel and congestion in other ways by shifting modes and reducing travel demand. And then finally, we received requests for clear GHG reduction strategies, more information on electrification, shifting freight, and emerging technologies. So we included more information on each of these topics in the plan, including content on electrification, adding recommendations to support home-based charging and multifamily-based electric vehicle charging, called out transit integration work and active transportation efforts such as our active transportation plans. And I'd call out specifically Appendix 10, which highlights a variety of GHG reduction actions that we could take to reduce our emissions. So the comprehensive transportation plan is a long-term planning document that looks out to 2050, but we'd also like to look at what we could accomplish in the next 5 to 10 years. So in order to do that, we'll be putting together a brief near-term implementation plan that'll look at priority projects that we're identifying through the SCTCA funding program, Cycle 2, and we'll make some short-term policy recommendations for what we can work on in the near term. So we'll be kicking that off later this fall after those recommendations from the funding plan are released, and are expecting to bring something to you this winter. See if I can get that pointed to the right spot. Maybe Don can help me out. So with that, I'll go ahead and wrap things up. The staff recommendation is that the board consider approving the final CTP. The document will be available digitally on our website, but we'll be doing a limited print run as well. So be great to get a show of hands for who would like a hard copy version of that. We can make sure we get that into your hands later this summer. So with that, I'll turn things back over to Madam Chair.
Great, thank you so much. Sounds like we have a couple who need the 1, 2, 3, 4 on the printed copies: Corsi, Leap, Harvey, and Cater Thompson.
Great.
And then it was great to hear that you've already taken the feedback about the larger supporting documents and putting them in appendices, because that was going to be my, I guess my first question was going to be, who's the intended audience and where are we losing them in the length of this document? But I think you've already addressed it, but please feel free.
So our staff and your local staff use that information all the time, all that reference material, the charts, graphs, all that detailed information and planning. So that's one of the audiences. But the plan's quite long. It's over 100 pages long, and we recognize it's hard to get to the meat, the recommendations, the goals and vision, and how we'll get there. So, I think we can switch things up for future plans, put that information in appendices or supplemental documents to make it easier to kind of get to what's really important in the plan.
Great. And I'd love to open up to questions from members of the board. Go ahead, Director Lee.
Off-base question here, sort of. I'm not very familiar with the laws on scooters and stuff. Why do the people who ride scooters think that they're in another galactic universe?
I wish I could answer.
I'm just curious. Is there just a mental vacuum on the subject, or are there no rules?
So I don't think that's exactly in the plan either way, but maybe the question is about
the interest in it. Okay.
No. I'm not trying to kibosh your question, maybe just reframing it in that how do we deal with alternative modes of transportation besides pedestrian, bike, or vehicle. And as we're seeing a rise in the use of electric scooters of varying speeds, how does the plan address where they belong and where they can stay safe?
A lot of the action in this area is going on currently right now. There's legislation at the state level. There's a lot going on in your individual jurisdictions on enforcement, and what different types of devices are, how to classify those. So we've included what information we have now in the plan, included links to outside information. And this is something we'll need to track over time. And hopefully it'll be clear by the next time we release another comprehensive transportation plan in 4 or 5 years. So we're definitely tracking that. There's a lot going on now, and I think it'll be clear in the future.
And are we tracking accidents in scooter categories specifically in some way? Are we working with the jurisdictions on how to classify those?
We're not currently, but that's one of the recommendations, is to track that information specifically, either by working with public safety or the state as part of the SWITRS, the state database framework.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Because I think it's one of those challenges where you want to legislate and you want to protect the safety of the public, but if you're not measuring what the actual, we hear anecdotally about a lot of really dangerous things that are happening on scooters and especially to young people. But without tracking it, it's hard to know how to fix the issue. How to
Well,
do.
Yeah, I did state the question because he did refer into a lot of public interest in the question about electric mobility devices. And I was doing a reality check that we were talking about the same subject, which was scooters. And perhaps if, what the questions were, since you didn't really detail them, is the concern that they're being mobile all over the place?
Yeah, we've heard all sorts of questions, comments, and anecdotes about unsafe travel behavior, including e-scooters, e-bikes, other types of devices as well. So there's concern that they're not being used safely, that the rules aren't clear on both who's allowed to use the devices, what traffic rules apply, and what can be sold, honestly, as well. So those are the types of questions we're receiving. So we'll continue to track developments as that emerges.
And what organizations such as SCTCA addresses those issues and those questions in order to bring the regulations and enforcement into line? I take it it's not SCTCA.
There's action at the state level underway right now that's looking at manufacturer requirements, but also laws on what can be sold and who can use certain DMV type regulations. I think there's also an opportunity at this board level to discuss coordination. I know it's a topic of discussion at a number of our committees as well at the staff level. So I think there's definitely opportunity to coordinate on what your jurisdictions are doing to enforce regulations when there are them, or put new rules into place.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Director Harvey.
In another position, I actually sit on the Public Safety Policy Committee on Cal Cities, and there is a lot of legislation that is going on in this arena. Unfortunately, there have been more than people like deaths that have happened and some very serious injuries. So they are looking at different forms of legislation, from manufacturer stuff to licensing to, age limits and all kinds of things. And there's quite a few bills that are being tossed around at this point. So at the state level, there's a lot more happening, and it'll just have to work its way through. But be assured that it does have people's attention because it is serious, and they're seeing younger and younger kids ride these things faster and faster. And it's twofold because they don't really have the brain power to know what they're dealing with. And it seems that parents aren't necessarily monitoring what their children are doing. So it's sort of twofold. And unfortunately, the accidents tend to be very serious when they happen.
Any other questions or comments from directors? Okay, we'll go to members of the public for public comment on this item. We'll start with those in the room. Please approach the podium if you have any comments to make. Okay, seeing none, we'll go over to Zoom. Please use the raise hand feature if you'd like to make a comment. Lori, go ahead. Is this a legacy hand or would you like to comment on this item? Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay. Do you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. I think that you guys should not pass this because active transportation because it's based on all transit systems that aren't your coordination. The mascots program changed everything. It changed the active ability of disabled people in Gotati Rota Park to travel and all this. It just seems that this was, I know it's been a long project, but it needs to reflect that the mascots program, that it affected people's lives, and it shouldn't carry forward and just be a rubber stamp like other counties, that we need to deal with sorry, I'm having trouble talking today. The mascot negative impacts rather than positive that was expected before passing the active transportation plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom?
Those are all the comments.
Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it back. And can you speak to some of the transit changes that have occurred recently and how that's reflected in the plan and kind of the conversation about mascots?
Yeah, what I would say about the comprehensive transportation plan is it's much higher level than some of our other transit integration plans that have been released in the past and that we'll be working on over the next few years, which Dana will be talking about after this presentation. The comprehensive transportation plan looks at really big picture countywide transit needs and transportation needs. And these other transit integration plans really dig into those specific movement level needs that have been discussed here in public comment today. So it's definitely something we can continue to look at, but, I would say, looking at those issues specifically should happen within some of those more detailed planning efforts that we're engaged in.
Great, thank you. Anything else from the board, or would anyone like to make a motion to approve or another motion?
I'm happy to move this forward.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Giudice. A second by Director Cater Thompson. I'm guessing that is a motion to approve.
Yes,
Is that
of course.
correct? Okay, great. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Yeah.
Really happy to see this moving forward. It's great. And now we're up to item 5.2, which is our Sync Sonoma Transit Agreement for Professional Services. Dana is going to come up and discuss the potential to authorize the executive director to enter into an agreement for consulting services with Nelson Nygaard to develop the Sync Sonoma Transit in an amount not to exceed $950,000. Take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, directors. So the item before you is for the agreement for consultant services to help develop the Sync Sonoma Transit project. We brought an RFP to this board in February before releasing it to consultants, and we had a panel made up of SCTCA staff, as well as Sonoma County Transit, Santa Rosa City Bus, Petaluma Transit, and MTC staff. The panel recommended that Nelson Nygaard and Associates received the award for this contract. This project is funded through the Transit Intercity Rail Capital Program Grant, or TIRCIT, that we received through Cycle 5. And the planning funding that we're using for this was a small piece of a much larger award that included a number of electric buses, as well as the funding for the North Petaluma Smart Station. So I'll provide an overview of the Sync Sonoma Transit project, which essentially is a compilation of 6 technical studies. This work will advance the next phase of transit integration planning, which will enhance transit integration, efficiency, and connectivity across Sonoma County. This project will build upon work that was completed through the Transit Integration and Efficiency Study, completed in 2019, the Integrated Transit Service Plan, completed in 2024, and the Marin and Sonoma Coordinated Transit Service Plan, or mascots, that was completed in 2025. The focus will be on the local bus operators, so Sonoma County Transit, Santa Rosa City Bus, and Petaluma Transit. So the goals of this project will align with goals identified in previous planning processes and are to improve the passenger experience, reduce operating and capital costs, and better integrate transit operations throughout the county. This is a multi-agency collaboration, and SCTCA will lead the project management, consultant contract, and state grant administration. A steering committee made up of Sonoma County Transit, Santa Rosa City Bus, and Petaluma Transit will be heavily involved throughout the process of this project. And we will be checking in with various project partners at different points throughout this study, including MTC, SMART, Golden Gate Transit, and definitely various departments within the jurisdictions that run transit. We will be using the lens of this continuum of transit integration. We use this framework with the Transit Integration and Efficiency Study, which came out with recommendations across these 4 categories of communication, coordination, collaboration, and consolidation. There's been a lot of progress since that study on the communication and coordination end of the spectrum. And mascots is a really good example of true collaboration among transit agencies. This project will start at the other end of the spectrum and outline technical steps that are needed to overcome barriers and move forward with implementation. So this is a summary of work that's been completed since we really started working on this transit integration. There's been many accomplishments, a lot of them large efforts for small but meaningful coordination among the transit agencies. And Sync Sonoma Transit will provide a roadmap for really accelerating the integration among several of these elements. So the first task in the study is project management administration, and task 2 is the first of the 6 technical studies that we'll be developing. The financial data analysis work started through the mascots process, and we'll be very happy to get some consultant support to develop that fully and develop a financial history and projections that are in a consistent format for all 6 of the transit operators that were involved in mascots. So this will include a compilation of a 5-year history of financial history and 2 years of revenue projections for all of the transit operators that receive funding through the Sonoma and Marin County coordinated claims. We'll be analyzing revenues, expenditures, and capital funding. And the deliverables for this will be editable tables that can be updated on an ongoing basis, as well as a financial analysis memo to summarize the financial history and explain the tables. And this is a product that can be used for if and when, more likely when, we may need to make any adjustments to the distribution of funding among operators, the finite resources that we have as services change in the future. Task 3 is a fare policy evaluation. And in this, we'll be assessing the fiscal sustainability of the current fare structures and programs across agencies. We'll be developing a shared fare policy model as guidance for the 3 local bus operators to use for implementation. This will also include a development of a sub-regional pass product with revenue sharing structures among the 3 agencies. And that's within the framework of the new structure of Clipper. This task will include an equity analysis and rider engagement on the proposed fare policies. Task 3 is a paratransit integration study, and this will be reviewing ADA policies, dispatch systems, operations, and costs of paratransit. And we'll be analyzing what cost savings and efficiencies there may be from providing a single portal, dispatch, and contract for paratransit service countywide. Through this, we'll be developing recommendations for how paratransit can be integrated throughout the county. Task 5 is overlapping service corridor planning and schedule coordination. This task will build upon concepts for local network integration that came out of the Integrated Transit Service Plan and mascots. So the Integrated Transit Service Plan sought out to review efficiencies of corridors where more than one bus operator is providing service, and to really ensure that we're not duplicating service and we're providing the best service we can with the hours of service we can afford. At the time we developed that plan, we did not have sufficient data to really come out with solid recommendations to move forward with. And some things were identified for intercity north-south travel that really helped to push forward the development of mascots. And with mascots, we have established that SMART is the backbone of regional transit in Sonoma County. And with that concept, we can kind of have a different lens to look at these overlapping bus corridors, ensuring that they are sufficiently feeding the SMART corridor. So we have kind of a new baseline of service, new identification of SMART as that backbone, and new data where we can take these concepts that were developed in that Integrated Transit Service Plan and move forward and to come out with solid recommendations in kind of the near and long term. So with this, we'll be analyzing overlapping corridors like those along and paralleling Highway 101, Mendocino Avenue, Santa Rosa Avenue, those on and paralleling Highway 12, as well as McDowell Boulevard and Petaluma. We'll be developing ridership dashboards and route efficiency options. And this task will include stakeholder workshops and rider engagement to ensure that the proposals that we come up with are meeting the needs of transit users. And again, this will include both short and long-term recommendations with this task. Oops. Okay. Task 6 is a downtown Santa Rosa station area facility study. This task will be led by Santa Rosa City Bus and will involve a number of different departments within the city of Santa Rosa, as well as other stakeholders. And will include an evaluation of the location of the Santa Rosa Transit Mall and look at improvements to multimodal connections to and from the transit mall between buses and SMART, and also look to improve bus access in and out of the transit mall, including potentially some transit priority treatments with a forward look toward efficiency of getting to and from the transit mall with build out of the downtown specific plan. This task will include co-design workshops to help refine the concepts that come out of this visioning process. And then finally, task 7 is the sub-regional transit integration plan. Again, this will build off of concepts and analysis that came out of the transit integration and efficiency study, as well as the integrated transit service plan. This piece will help identify challenges and opportunities to further integration of the 3 bus transit operators and provide a roadmap for governance, financial, and operational integration. The deliverable will be final recommendations and phase steps and may include some phase steps that are functional integration of maybe certain elements of transit operations between the 3 agencies. So this is a long-term project spanning over nearly 3 years with, as I mentioned earlier, kind of 6 individual studies, but that will kind of flow into this sub-regional transit integrations plan. We'll begin by kicking off the financial data analysis and fair policy evaluation, and then start working on the overlapping corridor study shortly after. And about a year in, we'll then begin the paratransit integration study and the downtown Santa Rosa facility study. All of these elements will flow into the sub-regional transit integration plan that will be developed over a longer period and be the final deliverable for this project. And with that, I'll bring it back to our staff recommendation, which is to authorize the executive director to execute the agreement for consulting services. And I'll turn it back to you, Madam Chair.
This is very exciting. Thank you so much for the presentation. And I'll start with questions from my colleagues before we go to public comment. Vice Chair Corsi is very excited to ask a question.
I'm more excited than you are. Thank you. This is great. I just wonder what kind of information points we will have over the next 3 years as this goes through a process. As we were talking, I thought of this as kind of mascots 2.0. And we're hearing a little bit of anecdotal information about the changes of mascots, how that's working. We're also getting questions about Route 51, for example. And I'm wondering about getting report backs. We're going to eliminate, I think, Route 51 at the end of this month. And I'm wondering how many people are actually using that. I think we did talk about doing some surveys of travelers. And I wonder how that will be integrated into this project over the next 3 years. How we can understand what's happening here, but also with what we've already put in place with mascots over this time, ridership numbers, travel patterns, what's working, what may not be working.
Yeah, so starting with the Sync Sonoma Transit project, we'll be bringing regular reports to the board kind of as there's milestones in these different elements of the plan. And ensuring that you're engaged along the way. We can certainly bring some more information on the Route 51 specifically, ridership, both on that route, but also more broadly with the services that were changed through mascots. I believe that July, looking to James to remind me, but I believe that we will be getting some data from SMART and Golden Gate, which had the most major service changes in July, and be able to report that out to you then.
That'd be great. We're making big changes. I think that they are working the way that we hope that they will. But I think it would be really good to have some real numbers to look at over time. Thank you.
With respect to the fare policy and changes and looking at, I think you called it a sub-regional fare opportunity for like fare recovery and how you're going to allocate or apportion that fare structure. I'm sure I got that completely wrong, but I think you know which part of this project I'm talking about. How are we looking at implementing the Clipper Start program and whatever the like 2.0 looks like? So from my very layperson's perspective, we have 4 different agencies, if you include SMART. We had people buying individual tickets or paying individual fare on each of these platforms. I think people still can pay cash and do that type of thing. We now have the Clipper card, which is not just a physical card, but you can also put it in your Google or Apple Wallet and tap with your phone. Some of the providers are also just letting you use a credit card if you have, mobile pay, and you can just tap on. So huge shift. I mean, in terms of how people can ride transit, and you don't have to have a monthly pass, because you can just hop on and use your device that's in your pocket. And then the Clipper Start program, which is the low income fare discount program for individuals, that was piloted in the greater Bay Area and now is being implemented here, I believe. How do we get the word out that that's happening, and what does it mean with respect to this budget, this line item, this fare 2.0 sub-regional structure?
Yeah, these are all great questions. So the Sync Sonoma Transit will look to align fare policies among the local bus operators in Sonoma County, that, really having a more simplified structure, I think, will be beneficial for communication with riders and the public. And then the sub-regional transit pass is something that would be available through Clipper. So, and be able to, like, a one pass product on Clipper that could be used for any of the local transit in Sonoma County. So that's what I was talking about with the kind of fare revenue sharing structure within that Clipper pass product. So yeah, Clipper Start has been available in Sonoma County. I think it was about 2 years ago that it went up to 50% discount on all the operations in Sonoma County. And that is continuing. MTC has done some work with community benefit organizations in the county to try to help get the word out, but we know there's more work needed in that, for both getting the word out about Clipper Start, but also to increase Clipper usage overall. We do have comparatively, compared to other counties, a much lower rate of Clipper usage. So that's definitely something that we want to improve upon, just to ease travel. And it's also really great to help understand the data for transit.
And that is the Clipper Start program is specifically MTC that is kind of like owning and implementing it, or what role do we play or our transit operators play in trying to increase utilization?
Yeah, so there's information, the transit operators all put out information on Clipper Start, but it is a program through MTC. I know that they have done some boots on the ground work to try to get the word out throughout the Bay Area. But it's an MTC program, but it can be promoted by local transit as well.
Okay, I think I'd like to give a recommendation that we look to the Family Resource Center network that First Five convenes, because so many youth are riding free. We have free fares for youth on a lot of our, if not all of our transit operators, but their parents may not know about the Clipper Start program. And the Family Resource Center network spans all of Sonoma County. There's a Family Resource Center in every jurisdiction, I believe. Groups like Community Action Network, Petaluma People Services, La Familia Sana in Cloverdale, Corazon in Healdsburg, La Luz in Sonoma Valley. There's a lot of these organizations, and they all kind of convene under First Five. And since First Five has funding through the Measure I sales tax that was approved a year or two ago, they could potentially partner with us on they're basically, how do you figure out how do you get these resources that exist for low-income individuals and low-income families? How do you get to the folks who are sitting across the table from them, helping them get from Cloverdale to a doctor's appointment in Santa Rosa for their child, for example? And so I feel like they would be a really good partner for us in figuring out how do you reach these low-income individuals who need to sign up for a program that you have to sign up for online. I think that barrier is really challenging for a lot of folks. And if we want more people utilizing the transit that's being offered, and we're looking at, the future of it, we have to figure out how do we get more people on board. And I think that it is cost prohibitive for folks if they're not leveraging this program. And it sounds like we have lower utilization than other parts of the Bay Area. So that could be some low-hanging fruit to partner with them on it. Yes, Director Harvey.
I agree with Supervisor Corsi on getting us data, because the data is really important. And you made one point that kind of slid by, but it's something that we have to keep in mind. And that's having a service that we can pay for. I mean, our reality is if there's one person riding on a Golden Gate Transit bus, that may not be the most appropriate means of transportation. So in addition to having these numbers, it will help us know how many people we need to help look at alternatives, and maybe some of those other alternatives might, show themselves if we know how many people that we're working with. So I think that data is going to be very important, because we cannot have services that we really can't afford. I mean, that is a reality of living in, if you will, a more rural area than, say, a San Francisco or San Jose or something like that. So thank you.
Director Cater-Thompson and then Director Abbott.
I'll just jump on that. I agree with Director Harvey and her comments, and with Chris Corsi, that data is important, because I keep hearing the problems, but I'm not hearing the numbers.
Director Abbott.
I heard that I heard the Golden Gate operating with one passenger on a bus, and I can tell you that will never happen. It does not happen. Because Golden Gate has a certain number of ridership expected per bus on average. There may be one, there's always going to be an instance of an individual on a bus, but the average of that route is always going to be above a certain number, or else that route goes away. And I would hope that all the local bus operators would operate in a similar fashion, or at least understand. I would love to, I don't know if we've ever received that data of average ridership per route and how that works. I know that internally it happens because that's how they put their numbers out there. But because of Golden Gate's unique circumstance, and I was going to say this at the end of the meeting, of the bridge tolls being the only really monies that come in to operate the transit systems outside of the usual things that I can tell you also, we cut by 2 million on the urbanized area from Santa Rosa. I think that's why you had 2 abstentions. So that 2 million is gone. Last week, there's a 10-3 vote at CARB. Thank God, our own supervisor, Linda Hopkins, was in the minority, but they voted to basically zero out LC-TOP and the TERSIP. That's another 3 million, I think, for Golden Gate, and probably James can tell you what it is for the operators here. So that's money that's no longer there. Mascots was really a way to coordinate, to not duplicate services. It wasn't set up at all, because it came from the committee that I was on, and the Blue Ribbon Committee that invented the regional network management at MTC to really coordinate that. So I think you're absolutely right, and everyone's absolutely right in terms of making sure that all the bus systems operate efficiently. You only operate efficiently by carrying passengers, not running empty buses. And we heard that forever on SMART, and SMART did something about that to increase ridership. And I think we need to do something about that to also decrease ridership on the bus services. To those calling in, I totally understand that there's always going to be a group of people that are going to miss having a bus. But a group of people on a bus does not make a bus financially viable, especially with everything else being cut. Eventually, Golden Gate probably won't have service to Sonoma County, and that'll be a problem for Sonoma County to deal with in terms of how they want to connect throughout the region beyond just the train. And I don't think we ever really kind of came to grips with that through those discussions as well. So I appreciate the opportunity.
And I want to thank you, Supervisor Rabbit, for your leadership on the phases of this process of getting to mascots and now moving into the next phase with Sync Sonoma. I do think that it has taken, well over a decade, if not longer, and it will continue to take time as this evolves and as our transit and movement patterns change. So much of what our system was designed on was around Sonoma County residents commuting to downtown San Francisco in some ways. And that's, so many things have changed, right? And in good ways, right? We have Zoom now that didn't exist when a lot of these bus routes were developed, and many other changes in ridership patterns. And we have a train now that exists. So all that to be said, I think it's really wonderful to get to have the opportunity to continue this work forward and to also see the leadership that our region is taking. I was at a meeting in Sacramento last week from CalCog, and we talk in some other circles about how many school districts we have in Sonoma County, which is over 40, and that means 40 school boards, 40 superintendents, et cetera. The number of transit agencies in the Bay Area makes the school board problem look silly because you have that many transit boards and that many different things. And so I think we are. And some of them are independently publicly elected. And so all that to be said, I think the work that we're doing in the region to be proactive around having these integration conversations is really going to hopefully be help us continue to lead by example, but also having difficult conversations that need to happen about the fact that the funding that was previously flowing, as you said, with what's happening in Sacramento right now and our friends at CARB, those funding sources are disappearing really fast, and it's a scary time for our operators. And I think we're going to have to continue to be proactive about how do we solve some of these funding challenges, because the equation no longer has a revenue side flowing to it in the same way that it has historically. And that's going to be really problematic for the folks that rely on transit in our region. And that's the role we're here to help support.
Not to dwell on this too long. There are 27 transit agencies in the Bay Area, and that's really the fault of the state, because the state has never historically really put money into transit like other states have in the East Coast. New York, a much larger city, has just a handful, maybe 3 or 4 total transit agencies, and those are even including the regional. So here we have so many more, but it was because the state didn't put the money in, and then you had like SMART being one of those, having to go ahead and go to the ballot, and every other transit agency or transit authority that has transit within that. I do think in the future for this county, we don't need 3 local bus services. Quite honestly, sometimes that local bus service only came about not because of the service it was to provide. I know this when I was on the council, it was a portion of that bus funding would go to the overhead to take care of a lot of the other expenditures within the individual city or jurisdiction. That's not a reason to have a bus service to offset costs by pulling down other dollars. But I can tell you when things get tight, that's what happens. And that's not what should happen. It should always be about providing the connectivity. And I think it can be, but I don't know if we're necessarily providing that connectivity as best as we can when you have 3 distinct and separate systems.
I think in response to that, do you feel, Dana, a question for you, do you feel like the Sync Sonoma proposal and what we're looking at today and the time horizon of it goes far enough with respect to where we ultimately hope our operators can sync more than sync,
Yeah, so the task 7, the kind of longer term and big piece of this study will directly address that and really look at barriers that there are to, a more full integration of the 3 bus operators. And this also is probably not the last study before a major governance change. I mean, that's a very long-term process. So we're really hoping with this study to lay the foundation and really identify those areas and hurdles that would need to be overcome to move forward. So yeah, I wouldn't anticipate that it's a very near term, but that is definitely the direction of this study.
Director, James Cameron, do you feel like given what the tectonic plates that are shifting in Sacramento, and granted, this was a decision that was a week ago, so we don't yet know if the state budget's going to come in or the legislature is going to save these programs that we rely upon for funding, but assuming not, or assuming that this is a sign of what's to come, do you feel like the way the Sync Sonoma time horizon and steps and phases is laid out is meeting the moment that we're in?
So I do, and I believe that to get our 3 operators to work together, we're still using more of a carrot approach with talking about full coordination and how do we be rider focused. And that's what this study does. It does not say the word consolidation. Now, as we work through that full coordination over the next 3 years, if Petaluma would like to consolidate, there's opportunities available there, but it's more of something that would need to be initiated by Petaluma. There's not a hammer built into this study. In my opinion, at this point, if we start coming out with hammers and imposing that consolidation, I think that you'll have more division and it won't be a rider-focused collaborative effort. So given the fact that the state of play in Sacramento is that we don't see any new revenue sources. I mean, my favorite discussion would be a discussion that would double our TDA revenue. That would be a game changer. There's no appetite for that at all to actually add another quarter-cent statewide. Could be a lot of benefits to doing that, not just within our regions, but more rural regions that would have an opportunity to use those funds for road maintenance projects and wouldn't have to use it on transit. So you could get to consensus, but to have an increase in sales tax with the affordability crisis that we're in right now, it's not on the table.
Thank you. Director Harvey?
Yeah. To Supervisor Rabbit's point, it points out that we need to communicate and educate, because the mere fact that he states that we don't run buses with 1 or 2 people, that's an education and communication that needs to happen as we go through this whole process. So as routes get suggested to be changed or deleted or moved, I think it's going to be really key and important for us to communicate that often and loudly so that people aren't blindsided as they feel that they were with mascots. And I know there was a lot of communications on that, but what we're hearing is people still don't get the message, and there was a lot of work on that. So we can always do better on communication, but I think that that's going to be also key to making this successful.
Thank you. Director Leap?
So I've been working with manager Emily Betts at SCT on the question of how do we optimize the buses in Windsor in terms of scheduling, but also in terms of how late they run and that sort of thing. And I didn't quite catch it as it was coming down in the presentation. Is that sort of thing, the last mile question and optimizing the bus schedules with the trains now that we, have trains coming up north? God bless. Anyway, is that part of this sync program?
So Sonoma County Transit is developing a strategic plan right now, and that's looking at their service specifically, the Sonoma County Transit Service, this study will focus more on where there's more than one service on a particular corridor, as well as other elements like fares, paratransit, and, the financial side. So, in terms of your local operations within a city, that's more relevant to the Sonoma County Transit Strategic Plan. And Emily and I are in close communication about that plan and how it lines up with the work we're doing in Sync Sonoma Transit. So there's a lot of planning efforts going on right now, and we're making sure that we have full communication between the plans, but that the service within the smaller cities run by Sonoma County Transit would be more relevant to the strategic plan.
Thank you.
Director Kater Thompson.
Thank you for all this information, and I am looking forward to all the agencies working together and eventually integrating into one system. It would be a real benefit, I think, for the riders, for the cities, and for transportation in general. So appreciate this.
Great. Okay. Yes, Director Harvey, and then
Just a quick comment, and that's that this is just yet another example of where Sonoma County is kind of out in front. As David pointed out, there's 27, I think he said, agencies, and our organization is leading the way and showing, I think, how things can be done. So I think another feather in your cap.
absolutely. Okay, I believe we still need to go to public comment on this item, so we'll open it up to those in the room who would like to make comment. Please approach the podium. Okay, we'll head over to Zoom. If there's anyone who would like to make comment on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature. Lori, we see your hand raised. Go ahead.
Hi. One thing I was thinking during your discussion is it showed that paratransit was like in a second phase of coordinating it, that it might be best to coordinate it and consolidate it because it's so much less rides, but the system right now, like if I want to go from Gatati to, my mom was in Hillcrest, where the old Hillcrest hospital is in Petaluma, I'd have to do a transfer ride, and I'd have to go to Sonoma County Transit to downtown, and then because it's too far, I have to take Petaluma have a transfer ride, and that's a lot of work for both people, both agencies and everything. And I cringe when I hear transfer ride. It happens in Santa Rosa too, that say I want to go two places in Santa Rosa, I go Sonoma County Transit, then I have to do Santa Rosa paratransit, and then come back on Sonoma. And those kind of rides are, people just avoid them. And I think that would be an easy way to coordinate because we're a smaller group. I also wanted to mention, I'm not against coordination. I lived in Sydney, Australia for 3 years, and it was so well coordinated. The buses all went to the trains. You could even take a school bus to with little kids to the train, but it was a lot of frequencies, a lot of options to get to the main one. So I think it is possible. It just needs a lot of work to get there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom wishing to make public comment, please use the raise hand feature.
Those are all the comments.
Okay, we'll bring it back. Any further comments or a motion by my colleagues? Don't all jump at once. Okay, so we are looking for a motion to authorize the executive director to enter into an agreement for consulting services for, okay, we have a motion by Director Okrepke and a second by Director Harvey. All those in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you so much. Okay, and our next item is 5.3, which is our Transportation Demand Management Platform Contract Award with Ride Amigos. And we have Steph Brett. Welcome.
No. Almost there. Good afternoon, members of the board. I'm happy to be here to present the proposed agreement with the TDM Platform Software Subscription Agreement. And we currently have a contract for Go Sonoma commutes with Ride Amigos. So what this is, it's a countywide rewards program where commuters can earn points for choosing sustainable travel options to work or school. The way it works is that you use a desktop platform or mobile platform to log your alternative trips. And you can also join employer school networks. You can find carpool matches, and that way you can access the HOV lane when you're commuting to work or school. As you earn points for your sustainable travel options, you can tap into gift cards and rewards programs. And also the platform hosts the emergency ride home program, which gives you some peace of mind. And finally, the platform is available in various languages. So the benefit of this program is that it incentivizes behavior change. It helps commuters make informed travel choices. It promotes sustainable transportation habits. And we currently have over 1,200 commuters on the platform, and we can reach out to them easily through the platform and send out announcements for first last mile outreach, any type of program, and for challenges. The Carpool Finder also helps connect riders. They message through the platform, and that way they can access HOV lanes. And as mentioned before, the ERH program is hosted on the platform. The strategy for it is gamification. So through commute challenges and rewards, we motivate people to have sustainable travel habits, and it leads to long-term behavior change. So the challenges prompt users to log trips and try new travel modes. And short-term challenges throughout the year will re-engage commuters throughout the year to incite some more long-term travel behavior change. So the platform is currently hosted by Ride Amigos. The way it works is that the Go Sonoma Commutes program operates on Commute Hub, which is the platform that they created. Now, due to the upcoming contract expiration, SCTA issued a request for proposals to evaluate other platforms out there and determine whether Ride Amigos would stay on long term. After reviewing the 3 proposals, the interview panel selected Ride Amigos again. Now, Ride Amigos has been around for commute rewards since late 2021. Now, we understand there's a lot of app fatigue out there. There's many apps out there, and that was a factor in our decision as Ride Amigos had already migrated users onto their more modernized app. It was extremely seamless. The users on the web platform were incentivized to download the app, but they were already on the platform as it was. So it wasn't a big shift for them. It just happened. And there was no loss of commuters that way. And since they are now more modernized and intuitive, it is easier to log trips for commuters now. The modernized platform provides better user experience across devices and hopefully will lead to more behavior change. As mentioned, the ERH interface is hosted on this platform. This is a great program for peace of mind. It provides reimbursement for commuters that took the train or sustainable active transportation to get to work. And let's say something happened, there was a train delay, or your kid got out of school early, you took a taxi, Uber, Lyft, or rental car back home. And if you're in Sonoma County and you're working in the county or a college student here and you took shared transportation, we will reimburse that ride for you. The benefit of it is the perceived risk of commuting on shared transportation or transit is significantly mitigated. It supports unexpected schedule changes or emergencies and increases the appeal of taking transit and leaving your single occupancy vehicle at home. And finally, you get rewards and reimbursements. So funding for this has been secured for 2 years through the Transportation Fund for Clean Air, TFCA. The 3rd year may be supported by the Go Sonoma First Last Mile and Commuter Benefit Program funds unless other grant sources are obtained. In the past, this has been funded with TFCA and a little bit of Go Sonoma. So now the timeline is that the contract is set to expire November 2026. The new agreement will lock in pricing for 3 years up to 2029 and provides the option to extend annually for up to 2 additional years. The pricing that we have is $39,950 per year, and this is supporting the platform, hosting and maintenance for it. And the total contract value will be for $119,850 for 3 years locked in. And then the 2 years option to renew is not locked in. And at this point, any questions will be taken.
Great. Any questions? Okay, we'll go to public comment. Thank you. If there's anyone in the room wishing to make public comment, please approach the podium. Okay, anyone on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature. None? Okay, we have no public comments. Can you tell me a little bit about how we or whom markets this app so that people knows it's available?
That's a great question. So at this point, we market it through the newsletter. We go to tabling events. We take flyers out there and we're marketing it that way. We also did a strategic TDM plan. So we do have plans to market it more heavily going forward. That is one of the biggest proposals for the TDM plan. And we also share with partner agencies, let them know about it. You might have seen us at Pedal Fest. Our flyers were being handed out by the Bike Coalition there.
Okay, great. I wonder if there is an opportunity to work with the business community, whether it's through the chambers of commerce, the economic development, what is it, not board, you changed the name, collaborative, or other places where a large group of employers who employ a lot of people convene. I feel like there could be some really great opportunities to get companies who have, more than 50 employees to gamify their workforce to try to get people on utilizing the app. So I don't know if that's within the outreach strategy, but I feel like, it sounds like we're doing a lot on kind of the individual level, but obviously can do more. Do you feel like there's room for more utilization? Do you have a game plan of where you want to see this go in terms of the number of users over this 3-year contract?
Yes, we plan on growing substantially more, especially with the strategic TDM plan that there's such a proposal to market it further. So we do want to grow it. It's also worth mentioning that the Bay Area Commuter Benefits Program, or 511.org, does require employers with 50 or more employees to provide these types of incentives so they can tap into this to log the behavior change they're seeing in their employees. But they do have to provide their own incentives on their own.
Great. And I know the North Bay Business Journal has a number of different events that they do in terms of awards and other things. So that might be another place where we could be tabling just to get the word out about the program.
We can definitely include that in our scope of marketing.
Okay, great. Anybody else? Any thoughts? Yeah, Vice Chair.
I've tried several phrases, but I missed the name of the app.
It's called Go Sonoma Commutes.
That was the first one I tried. I'll try again.
Okay. Let me know if you can't
You
find
have
it.
to find Right Amigos, I think.
Yeah, you have to do.
Go Sonoma's not
Oh,
the
okay.
commute's not an app.
Yeah. And it's in the developer portion.
It's called Commute Tracker by,
That is the older one. So it should say Go Sonoma.
No, it does open Go Sonoma, but when I look for it, I did the Amigos portion and that's where I found it.
Mm.
And it was under developers, so it's not.
So
But then it did popular.
like getting better SEO, whatever it's called, in the App Store. It sounds like that's what we also need to look at that.
Okay, sounds
And
good.
it has, it took me all this time to just do it.
I'm
they
glad
have
I
to have
asked.
the right keywords in the search algorithm. They have
And
to
we
give
can
the right
coordinate.
keywords.
Director
go.
Peter Thompson.
I just signed up, so I had to go into the internet and just put Go Sonoma in, and then it populated, but it would not go in with the App Store.
Huh?
I appreciate that feedback. I will reach out to the developer.
Great. Okay.
Wizards here.
Yeah, I mean, we're really a really good representative population of people who are commuting to work and trying to figure out how to use technology at varying speeds. So this is great. We just had a focus group without even meaning to. Good work, everybody. Okay, so our action item in front of us is consider authorizing the executive director to finalize and enter into an agreement for this service, which in an amount not to exceed $39,950 per year for a 3-year term with an option to extend annually up to 2 years. Do we have a motion? We have a motion by Director Harvey and a second by Director Cater Thompson. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And now we're on to RCPA items number 5.4, our climate strategy ad hoc report with Tanya Narath, and welcome back.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Sorry I missed you last month. So I'm going to give a brief update on the first or the kickoff meeting of the Climate Strategy Ad Hoc, which was held on May 26th. And just a quick reminder, the purpose of this committee is to advise staff on the update to our Sonoma Climate Mobilization Strategy. So we're really grateful to have our ad hoc supporting us in this effort. So for our first meeting, we decided to start off with a brief overview of the CTP, which you all just heard about with Chris Barney's presentation. And we invited Chris to come talk to the ad hoc because of the close connection between transportation and climate. With transportation making up roughly 58% of our emissions, it's obviously a key component to our plans. And so Chris focused his update to the committee on the GHG reducing aspects of the plan and highlighted for us that out of 328 total projects in the CTP that cost around $17 billion, 238 of those projects have been identified specifically as GHG reducing at a cost of about $9.3 billion. So there's a good component of projects in the CTP that are focused on that GHG reduction. Chris also shared some of the results of the modeling that his team did as part of the update around GHG emission reductions and which strategies have the greatest impact or are high performers. And those include things like fuel economy improvements, parking policy, so charging for parking across the county, congestion pricing, maximizing transit ridership to your earlier discussion, and trip reduction strategies. And then he highlighted in the CTP the recommendations that are around GHG reduction, which include strategies such as prioritizing funding for zero emission projects and strategies, transit and shared mobility, trip reduction, climate-friendly land use, fuel and mode shift. And so these are all things that we will incorporate into the update to the mobilization strategy. And then from there, the discussion went on to comments around how much we want to focus on using incentives versus mandates, or the carrot versus stick discussion. And what we're recommending from a staff level from the CTP is a combination of both. Changes such as vehicle efficiency, making it easier to buy an EV and making sure there's charging available could be looked at as incentives. And then of course, pricing is a very effective strategy that's more along the lines of a mandate or mandatory. Ad hoc committee members had some comments around that, and especially around parking pricing and how challenging that is in Sonoma County, that there's not strong support or political will to implement more pricing around parking. And also feedback for us that it would be helpful to have some economic data. So how have communities seen parking pricing used as an economic development tool, or is it an economic development tool? So that's something that we could take a look at. And there was also interest in the ad hoc in exploring more of the trip reduction strategy. So consistent with what you've heard earlier today. And then lastly, we talked briefly about the plans for the update to the mobilization strategy, looked at the scope and the schedule, and then started a discussion around the mobilization strategy goals and a vision and goals. And so staff put together a table that listed out the climate goals across all of the jurisdictions in the county, which came mostly from climate emergency resolutions, climate action plans, basically the most recent goals that we could find across the jurisdictions, and highlighted that some of these goals across the county align with our current 2030 goal of carbon neutrality and others don't. And that's one of the things that we want to address with this update. And the feedback that we received there is that there's interest in us producing more of a progress dashboard, specifically for our next GHG inventory update, to be able to show more directly and proactively how each jurisdiction is doing in the inventory update relative to the goals that it has set. So we will take that into consideration as we put that update together. Also interest in looking at natural sequestration potential across the county and the opportunity for regenerative agriculture. The committee also stressed the importance of aligning with some of the regional plans like the Bay Area Regional Climate Action Plan. And lastly, had a recommendation that we try and reach out to groups like perhaps the Mayors and Council Members Association to share what we're working on and to build more support across the county for this update. And then lastly, the committee expressed interest in meeting again in early August. And the topics that will be brought to the committee at that time will be the GHG inventory update, an overview of the existing conditions analysis we've done of all the climate action plans, and then a draft set of a vision and goals for the plan. And so that concludes my report. Happy to take any questions or additional comments from members of the ad hoc committee. So I'll turn it back to you, Chair.
Great. Anybody else want to share thoughts on from the committee members, those and also just feedback? Okay. Great. We'll stay tuned for more. And we'll go to public comment on this item. Members of the public in person, please feel free to approach the podium if you'd like to make comment. And we'll head over to Zoom. Anyone on Zoom wishing to make comment, please use the raise hand feature.
There are no online comments.
Thank you. And we'll bring it back. So this is just an update, report out, no action necessary. Any other feedback? Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, we are on to item 6.1, our executive committee report. And I'm going to turn it over to James Cameron for this report out.
Thank you, Chair. The executive committee met immediately prior to this meeting. We discussed today's board agenda. We also discussed the June 2nd Board of Supervisors Sonoma Wildfire Resiliency Project recommendations, including coordination on climate resiliency and adaptation. So there is an opportunity based on the Board of Supervisors action for potentially some one-time funds for the SCTCA to work on that climate coordination or resiliency and adaptation component of the plan that they put together. We will be back to the board in August with a recommendation. We also discussed legislative advocacy. The two major components, we talked about the state budget as well as the surface transportation reauthorization. We will be sending a couple letters out to our congressional members. Those letters will be in the packet at our next meeting, essentially supporting the bill that just came out of the House T&I with some recommendations from our body that we do know the congressmen support. With regard to state budget advocacy, the bike share ask is still in play. We expect action and feedback on that in July or August. The other part of state budget advocacy revolves around transit funding. And I just want to reiterate some things that were already said earlier that are just really important to funding transit. We did start off this year wanting to grow that transit pot in some way, and that's where we wanted to launch into return on investment with Politico Group, our state lobbyists. But, you know, right off the bat, we were looking at 30% reductions in our greenhouse gas reduction funds. Those 30% have now increased to 100% reduction in what we refer to as the Tier 3 greenhouse gas fund categories. Late last month, there was an action by CARB. Linda Hopkins was one of 3 dissenting votes trying to not implement the new auction requirements that reduce greenhouse gas revenues by $2 billion. So that reduction really impacts 3 major programs that benefit the entire state and specifically Sonoma County. So to talk directly about transit, there's a program called LC-TOP, Low Carbon Transit Operations Program. That's a total of $4.4 million between our 5 transit operators in Sonoma County. There's a population share and a revenue share. The population share is at the discretion of this board, and you act on those funds on an annual basis. But 4.4 in sustainable ongoing funds essentially is going away based on that action of being able to get those funds from the greenhouse gas fund. The other ones of the Transit Intercity Rail Capital, you know, we've been very successful in that program across the entire county as well as SMART. And we know that we are supporting an application that SMART will be submitting for that heading further north. For SMART to be successful, we need a robust TIRSIP program. That is the direct benefit there. The other part of housing, Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities Grant, affects both transit operators as well as our implementation of housing. So our delegation is very supportive of these programs. And right now we're shifting from a greenhouse gas funding opportunity that has essentially left to more of a budget strategy. And the ask is to fund these programs through at least 2030 from other sources within the state's budget. So we'll continue to support those efforts. They're currently, what's happening is you have, we did the state budget comes out with a budget in January. There's the May revise, and now they have just released a couple of bills from the Senate and the House side that are the June 15th, budget that is going to be required. On the Assembly side, they're essentially supportive of this structure in the first draft, where you would have a proportional reduction in those Tier 3 greenhouse gas programs. On the Senate side, they've made a request to completely rechange the priorities of how those greenhouse gas revenues are spent, and prioritizing those Tier 3 revenues as the number 2 priority within the GGRF funds as they develop. Focused on that defensive game of how do we at least maintain the very limited transit funds that we have, as opposed to growing the pot and doing what we can in Sacramento to support transit. With that, we did close the meeting looking at future agenda items and future meetings. We do typically take the month of August off. We do need a meeting in either July or August. Talking with the executive committee and the agendas that are coming up, we determined that we can cancel the July 13th meeting. So you'll receive cancellations for July 13th, and we will meet on August 10th for our next Board of Supervisor meetings. And that concludes the discussion at the exec committee.
Great, thank you. Any questions on that report? Okay, we'll go to public comment. We'll start with anyone in the room, and then we'll head over to Zoom. Please approach the podium. Seeing none, we'll head to Zoom. Do you have any hands raised? Okay, we'll bring it back. And now we'll move on to regional agency reports. Any items there? Director Rabbit.
Chris, forgive me. I think you've already heard this, but I'll just give the Golden Gate just to let you know kind of what we talked about earlier. Travel on the Golden Gate corridor by bridge, bus, and ferry remains well below the pre-pandemic levels. That having been said, travel in the corridor continues to slowly trend upwards. This is from March and April. So March was a good month, nice weather, extra Giants games. So the ferry was up 40% year over year. Bus ridership was up 1%. The bridge traffic overall was up 6% over March of 2025. In April, a bit different. Bridge was down 2%. Bus ridership was 8% down, and ferry was still 7% up over the year prior. And like I said earlier, the challenge of the district's finances always remains tied to the southbound morning commute traffic, and that traffic is down about 25% compared to pre-pandemic traffic levels. And downtown San Francisco's office vacancy rate is about 30% still. It capped out close to 40 at 39, but it's still 30%. So 1 in 3 offices are empty. And of course, that doesn't take into account at all remote work and what that does. So less bridge traffic results in less toll funding available to operate the district's bus and ferry service because, like I said earlier, the bridge maintenance and operations is always the district's #1 priority, and that expenditure is never reduced due to the downturn in tolling revenue, but it does mean that bus and ferry feel the pinch ever so more, and that's why we don't run empty buses, because we can't afford to. Average ridership remains relatively unchanged, though, so the buses that are running, again, have the same number of people on them as they did pre-pandemic. There's just a lot fewer of them. We have about 100 less bus drivers today than we did in 2019. And, a bus that ran out of Mill Valley commuting into the city where we had 8 in the morning, now we might have 1 or 2 at the most. And the second one is probably not that full. So things like that really, it's how the bridge operates the bus and ferry on that. I will say this, went up to Sacramento and the whole thing with the, we talked to a great many folks, not just from the Bay Area, But the CARB ruling, I think, was really took them by surprise, and I think they was not happy about it. They called it a bureaucratic veto of legislation that they had proposed. So I don't think you'll hear the end of it. I don't know how it'll all shake out. And I can also tell you that Senator Weiner, a former bridge director, is sponsoring a bill to allow the bridge district to utilize bonds through a conduit issuer. There are over 2,000 independent special districts in the state of California. Nearly all of them would have bonding capacity, bonding authority, except for the Golden Gate Bridge. And it goes back to on December 4th in 1928, when the district was formed. They had different ideas about this harebrained idea of building a bridge over the Golden Gate and people putting their properties up for collateral. And they said, no, you can't. We'll give you one shot and that's it. So we're trying to change that because we're looking down the barrel at a $2.2 billion seismic upgrade of the main span. And for just having another tool in the toolbox, having the ability to have cash flow and everything else in that regards, we're looking for that to go forward. So that's it, my long-winded Golden Gate update.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question on that?
Please.
Well, why is the bus ridership so much lower in the examples you stated?
It's really downtown San Francisco. Golden Gate is really that service, that regional service that heads into San Francisco from Marin.
Yeah.
Honestly, Marin residents have the luxury of working probably wherever they want for the most part. This does not include for the regional system, which is split off into Marin Transit. Golden Gate still operates that, but it's under Marin Transit. This is really just the regional. So it's just all based upon downtown San Francisco, not coming back yet from pre-pandemic levels. So it's a new reality, which I think we've adapted to over the years. This coming year in our budget will be probably the first year where you see it directly, because quite frankly, this was true of all transit agencies. Everyone had their aspirational budgets that showed the overall losses because they wanted to continue to receive the 3 separate federal, programs that were out there to backfill those things. So we're using the last of that money this year, and then next year you'll see a new, more actual budget going forward. But yeah, it's downtown San Francisco. Downtown San Francisco will, I'm a San Franciscan, it will always bounce back. AI is still kind of there. Some of the other tech has left, but and personally, I think that Mayor Lurie is trying to change the city and bring some people back downtown, and we'll see. Time will tell.
Great. Go ahead, Vice Chair Corsi.
They haven't counted all the votes yet, but I'm pretty confident that SMART is going to be renewed. And this is for 30 years, so 2059.
See you then.
The next time you'll get to vote on SMART, put it on your calendar.
I think Jeff's younger than I am for what it's worth. So. But I'm glad my youthful glow makes you think I will still be here at that year. And if I'm still sitting at this table, I give you all permission to tell me to leave. And with that, any other regional agency reports? In 2059, if I'm still sitting at this table?
Let's put it on my calendar.
Perfect. Okay. Great. Okay, any other regional agency reports? Okay, and then we have our advisory committee agendas in the packet. Any call outs on those committees that we need to know about? Seeing none, we will move over to David for item 6.4, and we're gonna get a consolidated report out on all the 6.4s, and then we'll take public comment, and this is our final item. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Directors. Dave Ripper, Director of Projects Programming at SCTCA. Glad to be back here after being gone last month. And as noted, we'll give you a short presentation on the activities reports for May. And just to highlight the items for you, on the planning side, we have an update on the travel model update and travel behavior study that you approved on the consent calendar today. Updates on the Hearn Avenue and 116, 121 projects and some awards we've received recently. Other projects on Highway 37 and Corona Road, and also our greenhouse gas inventory. On the program side, we're talking about some partnerships we have for electric vehicles, and also talking about Bayren outreach and marketing. And then on the engagement and communication side, talking about our events on Bike to Work Day and the recent event we had for Run with Bike Share. And then finally wrapping up with funding updates for our SCTCA funding program cycle 2 and some grants that we're helping plan and coordinate. Just to give you a little bit more detail on the travel model update and travel behavior study. So we will be issuing an RFP this month to select a consultant that will help recalibrate and validate our Sonoma County travel model, which is used by us and the jurisdictions for land use and transportation planning. We're going to update the Sonoma County travel behavior study and then also receive ongoing modeling support and training. So the proposals we would do in August, and we anticipate having the contract award come back to you in October of this year. Recently, the US 101 Hearn Avenue Interchange was awarded the Bridge Award by the Northern California Engineering Contractors Association. So we're very proud to be part of that award with City of Santa Rosa and Caltrans. Also, the State Route 116-121 roundabout was awarded the 2025 Multimodal Project of the Year by the California Transportation Foundation. So we're very proud to receive both those awards. I should note that the Hearn Avenue Interchange was also a finalist for the Multimodal Project of the Year, but we beat ourselves in that category, unfortunately. And we're continuing to coordinate with Caltrans on other awards that we're pursuing for both of these projects. On the project side, we're continuing to work with Caltrans on the State Route 37-121 long-term improvements and Lakeville Highway corridor improvements. These two projects are being combined in the same RFP. We are currently negotiating with the top-ranked firm on their scope and fee. We are also working with Caltrans on their cooperative agreement to oversee the work and have recently come to some agreement on the project limits and are still working out some items that Caltrans will perform and other items that Caltrans will be charging cost to oversee the project. This contract award we anticipate will come to you in the future. Now that you've canceled the July meeting, potentially it'll be coming to you in the August meeting, and that'll be in conjunction with an overall update on the status of this Resilient State Route 37 program. We are also working closely with Caltrans and the City of Petaluma on the US 101 Corona Road overcrossing. A top-ranked firm has also been selected on that project, and we're working on some contract negotiations for that firm to help prepare the project initiation document. Recently, this was a project that was selected by Caltrans headquarters as one of only 3 projects in the Bay Area for Caltrans to be paying for and leading the development of the project initiation document. This document is needed to open up any potential state funding sources, including Caltrans funds for the project. So it's very critical that that report gets done. And there is an item later tonight from the Petaluma City Council agenda to help contribute funds towards doing that PID document and helping compensate SCTCA for our work on the project. The project is anticipated to widen existing overcrossing to provide a 2-way bicycle path on one side and a bike lane on the westbound direction, and then also include a roundabout at the intersection of Industrial Avenue on the west side and connect the pathway all the way to McDowell Boulevard and connect to the new Petaluma North Smart Station on the east side. We are also working on updating our greenhouse gas inventory for 2024 using the most recent data we have. We have developed preliminary results for the built environment, solid waste, and agriculture sectors. And we anticipate having the final greenhouse gas inventory update for you later in July. And so we'll be bringing that to you back in the August meeting. We also recently joined the East Bay Clean Cities Coalition. This is one of 75 Clean Cities Coalition, which are sponsored by the U.S. Department of Energy to help to deploy affordable and efficient transportation fuels, energy efficient mobility systems, and other fuel saving technologies and practices. This is a way for us to collaborate on local resources, joint projects, and help increase alternative fuel vehicles in our communities. Recently for Bayren marketing, we worked with the Low Income Investment Fund and First Five Sonoma County on the Child Care Facility Improvement Grant Program. This is looking at ways to identify opportunities to leverage Bayren resources alongside other local funding to support renovation, repair, and expansion projects to improve facilities quality, safety, capacity. And we're helping explore how Bay Area's ease home and business programs can complement the grant funding for both in-home and commercial childcare providers. On the engagement and communication side, we're helping support the Sonoma Climate Mobilization Strategy outreach, including coordinating with local organizations to conduct focus groups and gather input on climate priorities throughout Sonoma County. We also participated in the Bike Work Day, including the event that City of Santa Rosa hosted at the Prince Memorial Greenway by City Hall. And at that event, we gathered feedback on active transportation and climate priorities while promoting the Sonoma Creek Community Rewards Program. We had over 650 riders visit Energizer stations countywide. So really want to appreciate our thanks to all the local agencies that participated in events that day. Recently, we had the Redwood Bike Share Tour in partnership with Smart and Redwood Bike Share. We helped to showcase how the expanded Smart service through mascots is helping to provide good transit connectivity, and how Redwood Bike Share is providing that first and last mile connection across Sonoma County. I should note that recent ridership numbers from Smart are showing with a 19% increase in service on Smart, we have over 20% increase in ridership, and that's continuing to grow. So it's very noteworthy and almost unheard of to have ridership increase that fast with that level of service increase. Before I move off of that, I should also mention that we are also continuing to coordinate with the state legislature and MTC on potential funding to extend the Redwood Bike Share pilot program for the future, since the contract funding will be running out later this year. On the funding side, staff are finishing up the evaluation of the applications that were developed by local agencies and transit operators for the SCTCA funding program cycle 2. We had received over 72 applications requesting almost $800 million for the approximately $73 million in funding we have available. At this point, we are working with your staffs to develop applications for MTC's One Bay Area grant program and their CARE program for projects that we thought would be a good fit for that. So we should have those applications due back to us in early July, and then come back to you with funding recommendations in mid-July. Those recommendations will be going through the committees later in August and then coming back to this board for action in September of this year. Once MTC takes action on the OBAG applications in the winter, we will be coming back to you in February of next year with final recommendations on the funding program. On the grant side, we're currently coordinating with the cities of Petaluma, Run Park, and the county on active transportation program grant applications. These include applications for the River Trail underneath US 1 and the SMART tracks in Petaluma, in the Bellevue and Moreland areas of South Santa Rosa with the county, and also the US 101 Copeland Creek overcrossing in Run Park. So we are coordinating with all those local agencies on those grant applications, and they will be submitted to the state later in June. We also worked with the cities in the county recently to resubmit a fiscal year 26 Safe Streets and Roads for All grant application to the federal government. This application is to update all of the existing local road safety plans that were completed in 2021 and 2022, and also do new plans for the cities of Cloverdale and Sonoma. These plans are required to access federal funds through MTC and through Caltrans, and so we're hopeful that we're able to get some funds from the federal government to do these plans. Otherwise, we'll have to coordinate with the cities and the county to make sure that those plans get updated soon, so that the cities and the county can continue to be eligible to receive federal funds. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Wow, you guys have been busy. There's a lot going on. Let's go to public comment. Do we have anybody in the room who want to comment on this item? And Zoom, go ahead and use the raise hand feature. Any commenters on Zoom?
There are no online comments.
Okay, great. We'll bring it back. Directors, any questions, comments, anything on the activities reports? Great. Thank you for the thorough report and lots of action. So with that, as Director Cameron said, we will not be meeting in July. We'll be back here in August. And any board member announcements? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you so much. No, it's a regional Asian